So much of the healing process is basically about creating a greater level of self awareness and self acceptance, and also becoming a little bit more intentional with your attention. We are chronically emotional creatures, and yet we like to think that we're very logical and rational, that we're in control of our thoughts. And yet, the majority of our day is spent on autopilot, and so much of our behaviors and our thoughts are driven from emotional sources that we know nothing about, which are very much based on our past experiences. And in order for us to, I suppose, get in the driving seat of our life, we need to create an awareness of what oftentimes we are unaware of. And that means being able to be in touch with your emotions. Now, that doesn't mean that every emotion is going to feel pleasant, but it's about recognizing that the more you try to suppress or repress your emotions, the more of a hold they have over your thoughts and behaviors. Whereas if you can sit with them, tolerate them, learn to regulate them, then you're more likely to be able to practice agency in the decisions that you make and recognize the reasons behind the choices that you make. Because again, we all want to live better lives or better lives. We do want to be kind and humble and loving and empathetic and brave. And yet so much of what we do is driven by greed and fear and uncertainty and insecurity. And yet we tend to want to nearly annihilate those aspects of ourselves. We tend to assume that we have to be all good, and yet we're all made up of two wolves. We have the good and the bad and the yin and the yang, and it's recognizing that just because you have some of those kind of thoughts of self-loathing and resentment towards others and anger doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. And the more we can make peace with all aspects of ourselves, the more likely we are to be successful in healing, because it's only through self-acceptance and acknowledgement of our capacity to do bad things that we can make more conscious choices, that we can become more present in who we actually are and the life that we're living, and be more discerning about what it is that we decide to do with that. And we tend to get very perturbed by failures and setbacks because they're inevitable, and yet we seem to think that the healing process should be linear, that there should be very much a straight trajectory, and very seldom is there. I would always question anyone who says, I made it through without any hiccups whatsoever. But it's the hiccups that actually heal us. That's where most of the growth occurs, because that's when we're cracked open. That's when we have a capacity to see the most vulnerable part of ourselves and to heal that part of ourselves, to treat it with compassion and love and understanding, as opposed to seeing it as an inherent character flaw and assuming that we're somehow some sort of bad person because we're not perfect. And it's very difficult to be on a healing journey and to remain on the path, because ultimately the world in which we live in is designed to make us comfortable, to convince us that we can buy our way to happiness, and it's all about convenience and it's all about capitalism, and there's very little about, living just a very basic benevolent life. And yet this is the life that will give us that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment that we're all looking for in the more commercial side of things. We think that if we look different, or if we buy certain things, or if we have a certain amount of money, or that our lives are going to be ultimately better. And yet it's this hedonic treadmill that we're all on, assuming that we're going to at some stage reach this place of ongoing happiness that just doesn't exist. All we have is here and now. And it's recognizing that life has ups and downs, and the more you navigate them, the more you face up to them, the more resilient you become. And being able to face up to them means being able to sit with the feelings that they present you with, and they can be painful, they can be very distressing, and yet they don't last forever. And as I said, if you want to change the world, you have to start off with yourself. You have to continuously make choices that bring you towards a loving place, that, you know, bring you towards compassion, that understand that yes, sometimes you feel pain, but that doesn't mean that you have to inflict pain on others, because we tend to want to live in this bubble where we protect ourselves, where we don't have to worry about anybody else's experience, where we can just point our finger at other people and assume that they're the reason that the world is the way it is, and they're the reason that we're not completely happy. And we need to take ownership and accountability for ourselves, because although bad things happen to people through no fault of their own, what you do with that is completely down to you. You know, you can wallow in it, or you can look at, okay, what can I do with this painful energy? What can I transform it into? What can I make my life become? Because every single decision matters. You know, it's just one good decision after the other. And when we look too far ahead and assume that, you know, we need to be in a certain place at a certain time, we just become overwhelmed. We need to let go of that need for certainty, let go of a guaranteed result, and just make one good choice after another. And the good choices are seldom the easy choices. You know, we tend to want an easy route, we want an easy way out, and we want an instant fix. And unfortunately, the good things in life take work, and they take dedication, and they take commitment. But man, when you start living authentically, when you start living in the present, you just change your outlook on everything. And it's a fabulous place to be, because even when things are tough, everything is real, and you are where you are, and you understand that you have the inner poise and the inner strength to deal with anything that life throws at you. So if you'd like to improve your emotional resilience and become more self-aware, if you'd like to heal any aspect of your life, get in touch with me on the website. It's fundamentals.ie.